Ladies and gentlemen, today we have a very special guest in Jed Babbin. Jed Babbin is the editor of Human Events, a very interesting and unique outlet for conservative information. He served as Deputy Undersecretary of Defense in the George Bush Senior Administration. He is the author of the compelling book, In the Words of Our Enemies. Jed Babbin, we'd like to welcome you to the Conscience of Kansas radio program.
Hey, good to be back with you.
Well, you know, Jed, you're our kind of people down here. We're in conservative Kansas land on the Conscience of Kansas, and we like straight talkers, people that will just lay it out there honestly, no matter, letting the chips fall where they may. And I tell you what, that's what you do, and it doesn't matter whether you're on CNN or Fox or if you're on the Colbert Report. You just lay it out there, and we really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. No one's ever accused me of being subtle, so it's just got to call them as I see them.
Well, that's the way to do it. We want to talk, and we're very interested in talking about your book, In the Words of Our Enemies. But before we do that, I want to take just a moment to talk about this unique newspaper that you're involved with Human Events. Human Events has been around for over 60 years. It's the news source that President Reagan called his favorite newspaper, and it's where a lot of unique information that is not out in the mainstream media gets disseminated. Of course, Human Events has several heavy hitters in the political world that write and put information there. Could you tell our Conscience of Kansas listeners a little bit about how you got involved and became the editor in this unique forum?
Well, it's kind of like a lot of things that's happened in my life. It's pretty much dumb luck. I had been a practicing lawyer in Washington and a Deputy Undersecretary of Defense, as you were so kind enough to point out, and I'd been working my way into journalism for a while. I'd written for the Washington Times for quite a while, written for National Review, written for American Spectator for almost 10 years, and I'd written a couple of books for the Regnery folks, Regnery Publishing being the other half of Eagle Publishing, and my dear friend now and favorite evil genius, Harry Crocker, is our editor-in-chief on the book side, and I was just bemoaning to him the fact that I hadn't found my permanent place in journalism yet, and he said, well, I don't know what's going on over at Human Events, but send me your resume, and 3 weeks later I was the editor, so it's been very much right place at the right time. I'm having a ball here. I'm working my tail off, but, I've never had a job that I didn't, that frankly was worth a darn.
Right. Right. Well, if you enjoy what you're doing, then you can put a lot of labor in without it taxing you. And certainly, I think you have found a niche. And I enjoy if, folks, you can find this information on Human Events at www.humanevents.com. And you can read not only the edited work there from Jed, but he has several articles that one can read that I believe are intellectually nutritious, and we like to follow them. And
thank you. And don't forget, we have some pretty big stars writing for us. Ann Coulter and Pat Buchanan and Bob Novak and Newt Gingrich. And, there's not a lot of dull stuff on our page.
Absolutely. It's a great lineup. You have information from Jihad Watch and Hillary Watch and other people that I have worked with and talked with, and it's just a smorgasbord of valuable information. And I noticed when I was looking on here and looking at sort of the lineup that the website shows of some of the things that are not found in the mainstream media. Once I got past the Kyoto Treaty part, which I couldn't agree with more, you get down a little ways, and it talks about terrorism. And it says, since 9/11, Islamic jihadists have perpetrated not 500, not 2,500, but more than 5,000 terrorist attacks. And, that should open the eyes of everyone. And I think it's something that doesn't get touched on enough. And I think it's a perfect segue into your book, and which is In the Words of Our Enemies. Could you tell us a little bit about this very interesting book?
Well, yeah, one of the things that really kind of surprised me, and I'd written, as I said, a couple of books for Regnery, and we started talking about another one that I might do, was the fact that no one had just simply gone to what our enemies are saying and put the word out there, put their words out there. I mean, we talk about them all the time and, try to divine what they're saying and what they're going to do. But the basic bottom line is it was really a pretty big surprise to me. Nobody really figured out to just catalog all of this stuff. So we set about doing it. Had a great research assistant, a gal by the name of Michelle Otis, who now, by the way, is working for us full-time here at Human Events. She's one of our rising stars. And she did a lot of research into a lot of different websites and books and things, and I just kind of sewed it all together, and it was pretty plain to me that if you sit there and try to stop what America does all the time. I mean, we're good people. We like to talk. You know, frankly, we don't listen too well sometimes. But basically, we don't like to judge people as bad, and we don't like to say that people are not good people. So we always say, well, you know, this guy might say that, but it's just for local consumption, or he doesn't really mean it, or whatever. But we put this stuff together, and it basically just shows there are a lot of bad people out there, and they don't mean America well. So all I'm saying is judge for yourself. You know, Americans are free. We have the ability to sit back and understand things and absorb things and make our own judgments. When somebody like Vladimir Putin says that Iran is his partner, yeah, I think we might want to pay attention to that.
Right.
You know, when a Chinese general says that the purpose of power is to gain hegemony, you know, to rule over other nations, we might want to pay attention to that. There's a lot in here, and it's not just from the Islamic jihadists, although there's, I think, well over 120 pages or so of what they are doing and saying.
Well, you know, of course, that problem is in front and center to us right now, but you've kind of, I think, tapped in to a tendency that is historical. You know, whether we go back and look at our inability to really look at the writings of like Mein Kampf and Adolf Hitler, or to look at these things through time, we seem to be the victim of avoidance of what our enemies say they're going to do to us. I think that's very powerful. And you talk about in your June 19th of 2007 article in Human Events, Our Enemy's Words, things like the 1996 fatwa from Osama bin Laden and the 1998 fatwa, where he basically lays it out in pretty simple words. We're going to kill Americans. We're going to kill their allies, and this is my command to do so. And, you know, I wonder if, Jed, if it's not only a combination of we have a hard time really looking at people that may be evil and dealing with that. We want to justify it as, well, they're crazy, or this is something out of context that really can't be what we're seeing. I wonder if it's also a combination of that with, at times there are people that just don't want to deal with these villains, and they kind of play together. Does that make any sense?
Well, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, we don't like to get into conflict. Everybody wants to avoid conflict if you possibly can. And, you know, that's a normal human passion, and it's not at all unreasonable. But the basic point is that there are some times, as you point out, when Hitler wrote Mein Kampf, 1924, if we'd merely taken it seriously and acted upon his words, I mean, we might have been able to save millions and millions of lives in World War II. Absolutely. You know, and again, when 1996, Osama bin Laden is declaring war against the United States in open words in a London newspaper. If we had only taken things seriously and acted upon our enemy's words. I mean, my book, you know, a lot of people think of me as a war hawk, and I guess in some ways that's fair and in some ways it's not. But this whole book is to try to do what Churchill tried to do in the 1930s. I mean, I'm no Winston Churchill, heaven knows. But if I can wake people up and say, you know, we really ought to pay attention to this and maybe save a couple of lives that way, I will have done my job on this